Content warning. This video is about a sensitive topic. We've removed any graphic content to comply with YouTube's guidelines. We aim to provide informative, factual journalism on a tragic event in the public interest that does not dismiss its seriousness. All clips are used under the doctrine of fair use for news reporting and analysis. Some points made in this video are opinions and theories. I am not responsible for third-party information.
Trapmore gang, while everybody has been distracted by Prince Andrew being arrested, nobody has cared to take a look at some of the more crazy stuff that's been coming out in these Epstein files. There's millions of files. People have been digging and digging and digging. And one of the craziest things that I've seen recently that has blown my mind is that they're now saying that there might have been a file that accidentally revealed Virginia Giuffre's true cause of death. This is very bizarre because I spoke to you previous about Virginia Giuffre. Okay, she is basically the girl that accused Prince Andrew of being with her after she was trafficked by Epstein. She made all kinds of allegations. She's been absolutely dragged through the mud for years, and she ended up dying under very suspicious circumstances. I spoke in a previous video about how she claimed that she had been in a very unusual car crash and she didn't have long to live. She only had a few days to live. She was apparently hit by a school bus, and there was no real reports of this accident going around. It was very, very suspicious, and she said she had a few days to live. Then she lived for a few weeks, and then she suspiciously checked out like that, and they were saying that it was actually she had taken her own way out. But now some of the little details that are coming out are very suspicious. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a Reddit post that is talking about a new document in the files that's come out that they're saying has accidentally revealed her true cause of death. And I'm going to give you an update on what the official story was, and you're going to see maybe there are a few things that don't quite add up. This actually is insane, okay? So this was going around r/Epstein, okay? Virginia Giuffre's cause of death accidentally revealed in the Epstein files. So this is a link to an article that's been reproduced in full below here. But essentially it's saying she died at the age of 41 and that shock and heartbreak followed the tragic death of Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's most prominent accusers. It says at the time of her death, reports stated Virginia Giuffre died by ending things herself at her Neergaby home in Western Australia, April 25th, 2025, at the age of 41. Authorities said an investigation is ongoing, but early indications show that the death is not suspicious. I'm sorry, but not a single death connected to Jeffrey Epstein in this conspiracy that to traffic humans internationally. They're all suspicious. I'm sorry, they're all suspicious and they should be treated as such. Her father publicly rejected the idea she took her own way out, telling Piers Morgan for them to say that she committed the S word. There is no way that she did, and she claimed instead that somebody got to her. Giuffre's Australian lawyer, Carrie Loudon, said that she does not believe the death was suspicious, adding the coroner will determine in due course the cause of death, and that will be established based on the evidence. At this time, the BBC noted that there is still much that's not known about Miss Giuffre's last days or her personal circumstances. Giuffre was an Australian-American advocate for survivors of S trafficking and became one of the most high-profile accusers of Jeffrey Epstein, and now it appears her cause of death may have been confirmed in documents released by the Epstein files. Documents from the massive Epstein files release revealed that the 41-year-old Virginia Giuffre died by her own doing at her Neergaby house about an hour north of Perth on April 2025. The files, part of the Department of Justice's final release of 3.5 million records from the Epstein investigation, accidentally included private emails that were briefly made public before being redacted, according to Daily Mail. Among these were deeply personal messages from fellow Epstein survivor Maria Farmer, offering a heartbreaking glimpse into Giuffre's emotional state in the months leading to her death. In an email dated May the 8th, 2025, Farmer allegedly wrote, "She died from a wound last week at her home in Australia." That information was not public. And I'm sorry, when you start talking about gunshot wounds, I start having some suspicions, to be honest. Too many people have checked out in suspicious ways in this story, okay, in this whole conspiracy. The email was reportedly sent to several of Giuffre's attorneys, including David Boies, Sigrid McCauley, who had represented her in the long-running legal battle stemming from the Epstein scandal. Farmer, one of Epstein's earliest known victims, has long claimed that she tried to alert authorities to Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell's crimes in the 1990s. Maria Farmer, her email with the subject line, "Abusing public victims has real consequences," reflected the deep grief and frustration felt by those closest to Giuffre. "I have no idea how to survive now. She was our leader, our purpose. This is agonizing for her children, especially her little girl. No one should ask so much of public victims. My raison d'etre was Virginia. I'm an old woman without children. I wanted to have a child like V, brave and strong. She was pure light." I know people do check out by their own hands when they do have children. That's not a thing that doesn't happen. But I truly don't believe that Virginia Giuffre wanted to go out that way. I just can't believe it. It says, Farmer criticized law enforcement, writing, the FBI needs to feel deep shame and cough up my reports. They need to apologize, though now nothing matters. I reported to FBI 10 years prior to this hero being... This is the most devastating sorrow, and now nothing will ever be okay again. Nothing will be okay without Virginia here loving her children and animals. I will never be okay. The FBI really damaged society when they refused to listen to the fact that children were... The documents also highlight the personal struggles that Giuffre faced in her final months. In January 2025, police were called to a domestic dispute at a separate location in Dunsborough, where she and her husband, Robert Giuffre, were holidaying with their children. While no charges were laid, Robert obtained a restraining order preventing Virginia from seeing her children for 6 months. Virginia publicly described the impact on Instagram. She said, I've been through hell and back in my 41 years, but this is incredibly hurting me worse than anything else. Shortly before her death, her lawyer and close friend Carrie Loudon spoke to the press outside Giuffre's farmhouse, expressing shock and sorrow. This has been a complete shock to all of us. If any of us has thought she was going to commit the S word, of course we would have taken more steps, but put her in a clinic or get her some more help. When I got the phone call, I was like, are you joking? Because there was no signs that that's something she was considering. Loudon emphasized she would not speculate on the exact circumstances, saying it's inconclusive. I'm a defense lawyer and I don't like to speculate about things until the evidence is in, and the evidence is not in. The police told me nothing. They didn't even confirm she was dead. It wasn't suspicious circumstances. It's S-word or misadventure. I didn't see her in the room. I wasn't there, and I'm not going to speculate whether it was the S-word or accidental. You all be aware that she's been in hospital. She's been on medications. Has she taken too many painkillers? Was she intentionally doing it? I don't even know what the cause of death was. Giuffre's body was laid to rest at her Neargaby home, part of her multi-million-dollar estate. And while the official cause of her death has never been publicly confirmed, the documents and private emails offer a window into the immense personal toll that the Epstein saga took on one of its bravest voices. Her death, coupled with the accidental release of confidential correspondence, has now cast a stark new light on the immense pressures faced by survivors of SA and the long fight for justice in one of the most infamous scandals of the 21st century. The FBI has disputed several of Giuffre's claims, including her allegation that Epstein to other powerful men, which other victims did not corroborate. An FBI memo noted that Giuffre provided shifting accounts that were sensationalized, if not demonstrably inaccurate characterizations of her experiences. Now, before I get into the comments, all right, the FBI disputed her claims, including her allegation that Epstein to other powerful men, which other victims didn't corroborate. Well, if that's true, how come she got a £12 million settlement from Prince Andrew? What? He just paid her $12 million to go away because what? Nothing happened? How did she end up meeting Prince Andrew? How? We know how. Jeffrey Epstein, all right? So this suggestion, they keep doing this, they keep gaslighting. Her allegation that Epstein and other powerful men with victims did not corroborate. Why is she getting £12 million? From Prince Andrew, disgraced Prince Andrew who got arrested today. How's that happening? The gaslighting is on an industrial scale in this trial, okay? And I believe Virginia Giuffre's account. I believe her. I believe what she said, okay? Maybe she was unwell. Maybe she was struggling with her mental health. She's not a perfect person. But I believe it because people don't hand out £12 million for nothing, all right? You don't end up rolling around with Prince Andrew. You didn't slip and fall into his lap. It was because of Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking, okay? Allegedly, in my opinion. And so this is now going around, all right? This is now going around. And basically, it's being said that actually it was the Queen of England, who's now dead, all right? Prince Philip and the Queen, who actually fronted up the £12 million for Prince Andrew to pay her. And you want to say no trafficking. You want to say it never happened. Epstein didn't traffic her to anyone. Prince Andrew just felt like handing out £12 million. Are you joking?
You know, this is a very, very serious crisis. The worst serious crisis the worst crisis that has hit the monarchy in living memory in the democratic era. And, you know, we have an institution that is already losing support quite rapidly. We have an institution that most people under the age of 50 are not that bothered about. And now they are exposed to quite serious accusations. It's not just Andrew. There are serious questions being asked, as we heard, you know, hecklers asking them. BBC journalists not so much, but hecklers are asking these serious questions about what did William and Charles know, when did they know it, and it's not serious to suggest that Andrew, if these allegations are true, has been behaving like this over the last 25, 30 years, and no one else knew. So there are much more serious questions which are not going to go away about how far the rot goes in the monarchy.
So there's been reports that the Queen actually stumped up, right, contributed to the settlement of £12 million. But anyway, let's move away from that. Okay, let's go back to Virginia Giuffre, the brave woman who you really mean to tell me she just shot herself after all of that? All right, it's crazy. So people are saying, how could David Boies represent Epstein victims? It's beyond me. He certainly appeared like he was working both sides. He represented Harvey Weinstein, who was good friends with Epstein. Even Epstein asked Eid Barak if Boies had hired former Mossad agents to do dirty investigations on victims. Boies was in direct communication with Epstein, both by email and in person. And in 2013, he was asking Boies and his wife to have an intimate dinner at his home, along with Woody Allen. I found that stunning as well. It's right up there with Alex Acosta not notifying victims about the deal was cut. So suspect, all right? And it says it's written in here. The lawyers of the victims were part of the perpetrators. Oh, God, here we go. Let's have a look. Redacted. Oh, redact everything. Crazy, all right? It is actually crazy. Okay, this is quite a long document, so I don't know if I can actually find what's relevant here. Okay, but... all right, this is like 100 pages, 60 pages. Okay, well, we'll look at that another day. But basically, okay, check who died 25, April 25, Niggerby. Yeah, we know that's how she died. So other people are saying I'd be extremely suspicious about a gun wound being... I mean, living in Australia, guns are very hard to get. By gun is very uncommon among women compared to men. Indeed, generally, Australian gun owners are very passionate shooters and hunters because the licensing process takes a while, and one needs to demonstrate regular association with hunting, competition, pest control, and occupation. Think farmers. I'll be curious if there's any record of this for Virginia. I suppose theoretically she could have stolen the gun from somewhere else. Still, there's plenty of other ways to commit that wouldn't require jumping through hoops. As you say, females using that guns for these types of attempts does happen, but it's not common. It says that she lived in a coastal mansion not far from where I live. They did not grow up here. They moved in 2020 to 2021. I assume she had that rural property for only 2-3 years max, probably less. She went up to that property to have some space, presumably for her mental health. Rural property owners are the most likely people to own rifles over here. Rural properties don't come with guns included, and one would need to be an enthusiast to even own a gun on the coast. Extremely suspicious this woman owned a gun unless she had it for her own protection, in which case the gun should match an existing license in her name. Would have not surprised me as it's not exactly unheard of, but a city girl living in a mansion off the coast of Perth, driving out to a rural property raises all the red flags, especially if it was a handgun. They're much rarer. Now, apparently she did have a gun. Okay. She actually was allowed to have a gun, but they're saying it rings a sus. Let's see what these things say. Interesting. It says, dramatic secret details of violent fight between Virginia Giuffre and her husband are revealed in the Epstein files. It says, unsealed courts reveal DV allegations, documents released in the Epstein files. US cops found Virginia covered in bruises and guns. Cops were called to the home of Virginia Giuffre and her husband over allegations, unsealed documents reveal. And these documents were part of a civil case between Virginia and Jeffrey Epstein's assistant, Ghislaine Maxwell, and were revealed in the December tranche of the Epstein files. Now, this was before she moved to Australia, right? According to a police report lodged by the Fremont County Sheriff's Office in their former hometown of Colorado, Virginia accused her husband, Robert Giuffre, of striking their husky bear in March 2015. When she tried to pull him off the dog, she told police he repeatedly hit her face with a closed fist. Well, that's so sad that she was subjected to that, wasn't it? It said that she had bruises on her face, blood on her jumper, and red marks near her collarbone, and she didn't want to tell them how she sustained her injury. She moved slowly and deliberately. Her demeanor was quiet and distant, she wrote. I asked Virginia to tell me how she got the bruise. Virginia was very quiet and said she'd rather not stay, and Robert was arrested and taken to the police station. She then told officers her husband multiple times in the side of the face and head, and he choked her. She said a whitish or clear fluid mixed with the blood started seeping from her ear, and that Robert had grabbed a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, cocked it, and Virginia stated that Robert tried to get her to pull several times. She told police that she feared for her safety and retribution upon her husband's release. Police seized a gun, ammunition, and knife from the home. That is crazy, but that doesn't indicate to me that that's something that she wanted to do. That is actually very, very strange. Robert appeared in court weeks later in February over one count of failing to store his ammunition in a locked cabinet in their farmhouse in Neargaby in South. So they did, okay, they did have a gun. They did have a gun in the property. That's interesting. He was charged with the 2015 incident. The couple married 10 days after meeting in Thailand in 2002, moved to the US before eventually relocating in Australia. They had 3 children before their marriage fell apart. Last January, police were called to an incident in Dunsborough, 250 kilometers south of Perth, where Virginia and Robert were vacationing with their 3 children. They accused each other of violence and no charges were laid, but Robert took out a restraining order against Virginia, stopping her from seeing her children. Robert appeared in court weeks later for failing to store his ammunition in a locked cabinet at their farmhouse. So I guess there was a gun in the farmhouse. Cops found 2 boxes of Winchester pellets, 2 boxes of 12-gauge shotgun shells, 25 Olympic Blue 12-gauge shotgun shells, a box of Fiocchi 12-gauge shotgun shells. They also found 8 boxes of 25 12-gauge shotgun shells, 400 long rifle CCI, and 22 bullets. He was fined $500 and forced to pay the court costs of $300.50. So in April, she took herself out at the farm. Now, it's interesting, right? Because back then there was no mention, okay, no explanation of how she decided to end things, or allegedly. Okay, and we're hearing about all of these kind of, back and forths and things like that. But I don't think that's super helpful, right? So it rings sus to me. I'm a farmer in Australia, and honestly, getting a gun license is such a pain. I don't bother, even though I could have had one on a few occasions. Interesting, I'm talking about the Bondi Beach incident. On the 12th of, November? Or 12th of October, she tweeted out, "I'm making it known publicly that in no way, shape or form am I the S word. I've made this known to my therapist and GP. If something happens to me for my sake of my family, do not let this go away and help me to protect them. Too many evil people want to see me quieted." But she did actually die 6 years after that. People are saying a lot changed in those 6 years. She lost access to her kids, suffering from abuse from her husband shortly before she passed. People saying, or someone paid a visit to her house, threatened her or her children outside her home on video, put something in her hand and said, "You have 2 choices." Hoping that's not the case, but this world has proven darker things before. And we have some who celebrate capitalism above everything else. I had naively hoped things were actually still getting better when voting for Clinton and Kamala. Still hoping, still voting, but we will see. So it's an interesting theory. People saying they absolutely do not believe that she passed through her own accounts. Read the account from the bus driver who hit her. He said it was a tiny fender bender and whoever was driving Virginia didn't even want to get the cops involved. It's very sketchy. Something doesn't add up, right? She stayed in the most obscure places ever, extremely remote, right? People saying, I don't believe this till I see the actual file and the link attached to it. They're saying the article was aided by AI. It's messy and non-linear. I'd like to see it too, right? Interesting. It says, random info. I live in the northern suburbs of Perth. After her death, Robert was posting in local Facebook groups as her dogs were missing. I'm unsure if they were ever found. People saying this is a red flag. It says someone came to kill her and therefore also had to get rid of her dogs. It's suspicious at the very least. If anything, it all went missing at the time of her death. It would suggest foul play. This is only speculation, but if she was murdered, the dogs would have been in the way. They could have been let out, but probably would have been found. If they were killed or poisoned, they'd have to be disposed of to make it look like a self. To the back of the head, CIA's oldest trick. It's crazy, all right? It is actually crazy. I had a family friend whose death was ruled as an S. I'd like to know how a woman leaving an abusive husband without access to the key for the gun safe could in the head twice in the master bedroom while she was supposed to be in a separate bedroom ready to move out the following day. People saying she had 2 wounds to her head. People saying, yeah, how is that possible? She says she complained too much. Here it is on paper. This is it. This is the answer. Cash and Don Boy. Holy redactions, Batman. What the F? The person who wrote all those emails is clearly a bit mentally unwell, but they're also clearly an Epstein victim, and there's a ton of context clues in those emails that could help identify more perpetrators. Someone should go through those emails with a fine-tooth comb and dig into them. Was it this one? Wait, we already saw this. This one. No, wait. Okay, so I've just dug in and learned a little bit more context about that document. Okay, it says these actually reference Virginia's death in one of the emails, so they weren't actually written by her. From what I understand, It's another victim. So all of this very long document is another victim, and it's emails back and forth of another victim, basically. And in these emails, it seems that another victim is basically discussing correspondence with Virginia Giuffre and basically explaining that they don't believe that her death was something she was responsible for herself. It says, please see attached just some correspondence between myself and blank. It involves blank, a book deal between blank and blank. Husband, blank. Can someone please ask why blank wanted this secret? Huge redaction, right? And says, of course it was a S word, guys. What a load of... That girl was murdered, all right? And I believe that that is actually referring to Virginia Giuffre. So it's another victim basically saying that they believe that the girl was murdered, that she was murdered. And then there's more where they basically explain... it says, never ever, you are more than welcome to lock me up, go on, arrest me, because nothing will ever even come close to what they've put me, my family, and the other victims and their children through. Just to ask blank, children who now have no mother. I believe, I would reckon that that's talking about Virginia Giuffre. Just to ask blank, children who now have no mother. That was not an S-word fact. So carry on working with blank. I want the attorneys to feel exactly the way, I want the attorneys' children to feel exactly what the attorneys have put us through. Fair game, no. Please phone blank about blank. Or is all of a sudden every girl that ran and facilitated an Epstein ring that still continues today a victim? In that case, I think it's grossly unfair that Maxwell's in prison and the likes of blank, Leslie Groff, blank, 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 all receive millions and millions of dollars and walk around in the world like nothing ever happened. You're a blank, you're a liar. And again, you and the other attorneys have profited hundreds of millions of dollars off our word and for decades. How many men have you in your legal wisdom held accountable? You know exactly who they are, and you have all the victims' evidence and flight logs. They all logged into your legal contacts that they had to sign. Now tell me what blank blank is doing with that skank blank. The very year I came forward, also election year, I seem to remember. Trump was right all along, and I look forward to Postcard Girl and her testimony on the stand. Hey, blank and blank. Let's see the story, blank, from Daily Beast, someone who works with you personally, and blank, The Guardian made of it. Fun times, folks, but blank, I can assure you it's not fun when it's your own children, and once again, blank is more than welcome to arrest me. At least I will get my day in court and stop deleting evidence. Interesting. And it talks about who's responsible for an S attempt in Macedonia when I was hiding. You are, and I hope you get charged for premeditated murder. You knew I was vulnerable. Everything you did was designed to hurt me. So this is basically somebody actually saying as a victim that they have had attempts on their life that were essentially framed as the S word, all right? Crazy. It says blank Macron and blank, who is Richard Levitt, the attorney I've never spoken to, who wrote on my behalf to blank, telling her I'm not to testify in the Jean-Luc Brunel trial in France. Precisely how many trips, my dear, did you make to France? Blank Macron and blank, who is Richard Levitt. Mr. Trump and Putin, Epstein always said that he would blank, blank, blank. You came close to blank as per this email, didn't you? Please may I ask you protect them, Mr. Putin and Trump, please. This is out of control. So, look, there's a lot of people who basically believe that she didn't do that to herself, okay? And it was very suspicious, right? It was very, very suspicious. People saying, oh, automatically assumed it had been an that killed her since it would have been easily accessible for and easy to disguise as that. Hearing now that it was a gunshot wound, I believe she was in a dark place and depressed, but she had kids. I don't think that's how someone with kids would plan their way out, especially if they were doing it at home, not just out of caution for who might find them, but for the kids to have an opportunity to see their mother before the body's taken away. I'm curious to know more about the situation. Where specifically was the wound? If it was somewhere that would be severely disfiguring, that would make for a higher chance of this being a murder. For the alleged cause of death revealed, I would no longer think that doing it to themselves was the most likely possibility, but this would make it even more convincing. I'm obviously curious what happened with the weapon also. It would be fairly easy to stage a murder by gun, especially by somebody who had experience with this type of thing, which I expect from whoever would have been assigned the job of killing her, but I do want to know how convincing the set was. Gun placement, fingerprints or lack thereof, gunshot residue, splatter. Are we to expect a decent investigation into this? I have no idea how these things are handled in Australia or who would be in charge of investigating or what details they would be allowed to read. To release. It says that last sentence from the FBI. Are you kidding me? You have 3 million files proving nothing was sensationalized, and they choose to downplay, sweep under the rug, and blame victims. Okay. It says there's an interesting narrative, but it's not one accurate to reality as there's no evidence to corroborate the alleged S word. Okay, so this is more in context on that paperwork that I was just reading. It says, read that file if it's still up. It's a heartbreaking thread of interactions with a victim and a law firm, 37 pages long, and it shows so much corruption in that law office. They tormented her and used her to get to victims. Brad Edwards also used the victims to write a book about Epstein, claiming to fight for the victims. Okay. Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy. All right. We're not going to do all that. We're not going to do all that. But yeah, it was very suspicious. I mean, it would be interesting. Let's take a little look back at some of the reporting on when she actually passed away and how people were kind of phrasing that.
Welcome back and Alive Now. I'm Austin Westfall. Breaking news coming in, some sad news to share. We're learning this from the New York Post, several other outlets reporting this as well. Virginia Giuffre, the most prominent victim of the late convicted Jeffrey Epstein, on Thursday. This is just weeks after she made headlines for saying that she had days to live after she claimed to have been hit by a bus. A statement given to NBC News was quoted as such from the 41-year-old's family. It says, "It's with utterly broken hearts that we announce that Virginia passed away last night at her farm in Western Australia. She lost her life to after being a lifelong victim of." And
so, look, a lot of people are not going to buy this, okay? Everybody in the comments is saying literally nobody thinks this was an S word, all right? No freaking way. It's so obvious. We're not that stupid. They really think we're all complete idiots. Yeah, the evil people killed that lady. She did not do this to herself. This is a joke, right? Someone needs to be charged with murder. The reporter sounds like he doesn't even believe this crap. Disgusting. No one's buying it. What? She ended after being awarded all this money and leaving 2 children behind? Something ain't mathing here. Now release the list. No excuses. Arrests need to happen. No way. Nope. Didn't. Nope. I don't believe it either, to be honest with you. So I think what would be good is, look, I want to dig a little bit deeper into her story and just give you more context as to why it probably isn't likely that she did this to herself. Let's give you some background on how she was actually drawn into Epstein's circle as a teenager, because she didn't know about no Prince Andrew, all right? She's getting $12 million payments as a hush money from Prince Andrew, and the FBI want to talk about, oh, there was no evidence she was trafficked. How did she end up with Prince? How did she end up with a prince? How did she end up with a prince? She's from a broken home. She's from a dodgy, gutter home. How the does she end up with a prince of England? It makes no sense. Giuffre's early life. She grew up at the down-at-heel town of Loxahatchee in Florida as a middle child and only daughter of the mother Lynn and father Sky Roberts. While her early childhood was marked by a poverty that verged on neglect, had been far from idyllic, it was fairly ordinary. This, I'm not being offensive, but this type of person doesn't end up crossing paths with the Prince of England. Doesn't happen. That was until she claimed that her father, Sky Roberts, started her, an allegation that Robert strenuously denied in a public statement published in the book, where he claims that he only tried to give his children a good life, but Roberts didn't respond to additional requests to comment from the Times. In her preteen and early teenage years, Giuffre had come to see her value only in what her body could offer, having casual sex with any boy who so much as asked. She recalled lying in her bed one night thinking of a quote from one of her favourite children's books, Charlotte's Web, where a lamb tells Wilbur that pigs mean less than nothing to her. Wilbur is outraged and argued that there's no such thing. Giuffre says that she tried to remember a time when she'd been more than nothing. It's so sad. Writing in her book, she says the early abuse she suffered made her the perfect victim for Jeffrey Epstein. Recruited by Maxwell at Mar-a-Lago. Home life had become so intolerable, Giuffre would run away frequently. Aged 13 and living on the street, she fell into the clutches of Ron Eppinger, a local PDF in his mid-60s. For 6 months, he held her prisoner, sent her to spend time with his various acquaintances. In a deposition given this July, Maxwell named Eppinger. She described him as his from when she was 14 or 15. He was in prison for smuggling immigrants into the US for S-work, and she was rescued by an FBI SWAT team. Recalling being a high school dropout living in a trailer with in her parents' backyard, she writes, I thought I had nowhere to go but up, but what happened next seemed like a gift. In the summer of 2000, her father, then a maintenance man at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago Club and Spa in Palm Beach, got her a job there as a $9 an hour locker room attendant. Roberts introduced Giuffre to Trump in his office. Oh, no. The two men were not friends exactly, but had been close enough that Giuffre said there were pictures of them posing together. Trump couldn't have been friendlier, she writes. A week later, while reading a book about massage, in walked a woman in her 30s with smart manicured nails and a clipped British accent, who promptly introduced herself. Maxwell asked if Giuffre would be interested in earning a little money on the side, massaging her friend, a wealthy man and longtime member of Mar-a-Lago. That same evening, the book alleged her dad drove her, she was still 16 and without a license, to Epstein's house, a palatial pink wash mansion at the end of a dead-end road. Now, it is what it is. Okay, it is what it is. She was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell out of the Mar-a-Lago club. And now, look, a lot of people want to point the finger at Trump. I'm scared of saying anything bad about Trump. But to be fair, this incident and incidents like this was allegedly, at least according to Trump, part of the reason that Trump wanted to cut ties with Epstein. And according to him, all right, he didn't like the way that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were skulking around Mar-a-Lago, scooping up young women.
Can you settle that? What was it about? What caused the breach to begin?
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth.
So look, there's been a lot of wild accusations against Trump. And look, I don't want to get into them. Okay, I'm scared. But also, a lot of crazy things have been said about Trump that are so crazy and brazen. It really is hard to believe them. I could believe that Trump genuinely wasn't feeling it, right? Whether you want to see him good or bad, I could believe that he wasn't comfortable with this going on, right? And you heard it there, black and white. Virginia Giuffre said she was recruited out of Mar-a-Lago by Ghislaine Maxwell, who approached her. And whether you feel like that's someone taking your employees, maybe you're completely unaware of the horrible things that they ended up doing, but poaching employees, full stop, that probably was upsetting. And I could believe that. Okay, that we'll leave it there. But in 2001, okay, at age 17, Virginia Giuffre was then, rubbing shoulders in high society. She was photographed at an event with British supermodel Naomi Campbell, who Virginia later claimed was fully aware of the ongoing, right? And she posted this on Twitter saying, you saw me at your parties, you saw me in Epstein's homes, you saw me on the plane, you saw me get my hair cut, you saw me on the streets, and you watched me you saw me, hashtag Naomi Campbell, right? There she is. There's Virginia, right? I could do a video on Naomi Campbell being involved in this, all right? Crazy. Naomi Campbell is such a disgrace. How could you see what is obviously a child at your parties hanging out with grown-ass old men and not say anything? It is sickening. Now, she would continue to kind of implicate numerous high-profile figures. And again, the FBI said no proof that she was anywhere. so I guess Prince Andrew and the royal family just sent her 12 million as just GoFundMe, a little fun walking around money. But she would make implications of other high profile figures, including former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, who obviously we're now hearing was, locked in with Epstein because Epstein was the biggest landowner in New Mexico. He had the Zorro Ranch up there. And unfortunately, Virginia Giuffre implicated other powerful men. All right. They're saying Jeffrey sent girl to governor and senator for relations. She testified. All right. That's what she claimed. What? Who could possibly? Oh, I'm sure she just decided to end things herself. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein and a friend sent an girl to have relations with former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, former U.S. Senator George Mitchell, and asset manager Glenn Dublin. Okay. This is from Bloomberg.com. So don't come at me. All right. Don't come and. I like being alive. Let's just say that. She testified in court documents made public for the first time Friday. Virginia Giuffre said she was sent to modeling executive Jean-Luc Brunel, the late MIT scientist Marvin Minsky. She claimed she was an S-slave for Epstein from 2000 to 2002. She was forced to have relations with Prince Andrew, Harvard University law professor Alan Dershowitz. Both men have denied these allegations. Prince Andrew denied the allegations so hard that he sent her £12 million. Okay. So this basically explains how Epstein is, facing these trafficking charges. Richardson said in a statement he'd never met Giuffre, called the allegations completely false, and said during his limited interaction with Epstein he'd never seen him in the presence of girls. All right. Andrew said the same thing. Oh, what do you know? We got pictures of you with the girl. Didn't really work out, did it? Mitchell said the allegation in the release documents is false. In a statement, he said he never met with, spoke with, or had contact with Giuffre, or knew that, or suspected that Epstein had inappropriate conduct with girls. Now we know everything we know. You can't even, with a straight face, tell us such ridiculousness, right? You never knew or suspected that Epstein had. Bro, the dude was convicted of inappropriate conduct with girls. But hey, okay, Let's just take what he says. Dubin and his wife Eva called the allegations demonstrably false and defamatory in an emailed statement. A spokeswoman added the Dubins have flight records and other evidence that definitively disproves such an event occurred. Okay, I don't want to get sued, but I'll believe you. I believe you. Jean-Luc Brunel couldn't be reached for comment. Perhaps that's because he was swinging from the rafters of a Paris jail cell. Maybe not at this point, clearly. But he went out the same way as Epstein. They declined to comment. All right. Giuffre's lawyer, Sigrid McCauley, said the denials are predictable, calling them bumper sticker-like statements. The truth will have the final word. Virginia Roberts Giuffre is a survivor and a woman to be believed. She believes a reckoning of inevitable accountability has begun. She said she hoped more documents will be unsealed, adding the body of evidence that's been amassed is powerful. In her 2015 civil lawsuit, Giuffre, a Floridian, claimed Epstein used her for all these years. We already heard that, right? So, interesting enough, it says that case settled with the judge sealing about 2,000 pages of documents. The appeals court on Friday upheld its previous order to unseal those documents. Some that were made public included emails, photographs, and flight logs. Other will undergo court review to determine what else can be released. The Giuffre deposition, parts of which were established as exhibits to court filings, included her testimony responding to newspaper articles about her experience and explaining where she got from. All right. It said Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney asked her to name the other politically connected and financially powerful people that Ghislaine told her to go and have relations with. That they instructed me to go to George Mitchell, Jean-Luc Brunel, Bill Richardson, another prince, I don't know his name, a guy that owns a hotel, a really large hotel chain, I can't remember which hotel it was. She said there was, another foreign president, I can't remember his name. There was a whole bunch of them, it's hard for me to remember all of them. She was asked about her relations with Dubin. What word did Ghislaine Maxwell tell you to go and have relations with him? Said it was the same all the time, all right? Said they want me to go and provide these men with a massage. She was, for Richardson, she said she was sent to New Mexico. And then this kind of recaps, basically, that, Epstein basically finessed his way out of his charges to a really cushy deal after being arrested for trafficking, okay? They all denied it. Of course, they all denied it. Now, interestingly enough, right, all more reasons not to believe that she checked herself out, to be honest, if you ask me. Now, her posthumously released memoir contained chilling allegations, including a brutal encounter with an unnamed prime minister. Now, some people have muddied the waters and said that you can't believe what she says in this, but it says Virginia Giuffre beaten and abused by well-known prime minister in an attack that broke Epstein's spell, her memoir reveals. Okay, let's get this clown out of here. And it says prominent was bloodied, beaten, and by a well-known prime minister in a series of encounters that finally helped the team break free from Epstein's spell. Her posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving and fighting for justice, she recalled begging Epstein to step in after the unnamed politician forced her to beg for her life, but the PDF coldly told her that it was just part of her job. Just part of the job. After the attack, I couldn't stay a fool. Having been treated so brutally and then seeing Epstein's callous reaction to how terrorized I felt, I had to accept that Epstein meted out praise merely as a manipulation to keep me subservient, she wrote, according to the excerpt shared with the Post. Epstein cared only about Epstein. Giuffre simply referred to the deranged man as the prime minister, saying she was afraid that the brute would seek to hurt her if she printed his name. In the past, she pointed to Israel's prime minister, Eid Barak, in court filings as one of the many elites that had her, a claim that he repeatedly denied. In her memoir, she said she first met the Prime Minister on Epstein's private island in the US Virgin Islands sometime in 2002. When she was just 18, she was ordered to escort him to a cabana, but the man made it clear as soon as they were alone that he wanted violence. He had abused her more savagely than anyone else had. She rushed to Epstein and begged him not to send her back to him. I got down on my knees and pleaded with him. I don't know if he feared the man or owed him a favor, but he wouldn't make any promises, saying coldly of the brutality, "You'll get that sometimes." Sometime later, Epstein sent her. This website sucks. Sometime later, Epstein sent her back to the politician for a second encounter conducted entirely in a cabin aboard Epstein's plane. The experience was far less violent. She spent the entire hour in fear he would suddenly strike or shoot her. She admitted before that violent experience, she had given Epstein the benefit of the doubt and believed that he cared for the girls that he was shooting. She was not completely naive, she wrote, acknowledging his predilection for young Tings was a sickness, but in his twisted way he meant well. His indifference to her fear and injuries from the Prime Minister forced the 18-year-old to face the truth. Chillingly, she predicted her own death in the passage, saying she would not survive a life of and would either take her life or die at the hands of one of Epstein's friends. I didn't know it then, but my second interaction with the Prime Minister was the beginning of the end for me. She said she stopped recruiting other young girls for Epstein as he had forced her to do in the past. And the final breaking point came that summer when Epstein and his Madam Ghislaine Maxwell pleaded with Virginia to carry their child, a proposal that came with mansions, wealth, and around-the-clock nannies, but would require her to sign away any legal rights. Look at this pack. She left the couple's grasp not long after, but her experiences haunted her for the rest of her life, particularly the greedy, cruel look on the Prime Minister's face as he watched me. The man accused, the Prime Minister, has repeatedly denied any claims or any knowledge. All right, but he was a personal friend of Epstein's and used several $1 million of Epstein's money to finance a security company. Okay. No mention, not really any detail of the checking out. But yeah, it's crazy. All right, it's crazy. Some people don't buy it. Some people don't buy it. They don't believe it. They believe that she was convincing other people to join. But other excerpts from the memoir provided a very deeply disturbing look into the scale of the abuse that she was enduring. Okay, these are some disturbing excerpts from the memoir. I want to be careful. I don't want to. She said she had relations with Prince Andrew on separate occasions, including one that involved a lot of other people who were young. A lot of them didn't speak English. Epstein was laughing about how they couldn't really communicate and said they were easy to get along with. Said that she was left with so I don't even want to described relations with him as sadomasochistic, restraints, other. Oh my God. She talks about seeing the infamous photo of Prince Andrew and Epstein walking through Central Park after his first conviction for, noting that this was the moment that spurred her to go on the record. I was revolted to see two of my together out for a stroll, but mostly I was amazed that a member of the royal family would be stupid enough to appear in public with Epstein. On hearing of Epstein's death in prison, she felt disappointed, saying this isn't how justice was supposed to work out. On Andrew, she recalled telling journalists he knows exactly what he's done and I hope he comes clean about it and that the royals will be held to account. Andrew denied everything. After casting doubt on my credibility for so long, Prince Andrew's team had gone so far as to hire internet trolls to hassle me. Andrew had also asked his bodyguard to dig up dirt on her and claims the Met Police said it was actively looking at the allegation. Said on taking the prince to court, she recalled Andrew hid behind the well-guarded gates of Balmoral to avoid being served court papers. She admits we'd never get a confession, of course, but that's what settlements are designed to avoid. We're trying to get the best next thing, a general acknowledgement of what I had been through. Having denied all the allegations, Andrew basically lives rent-free on the royal mansion on Windsor Estate. Okay, I think he's been kicked out there now. And she said that Andrew losing his royal titles was at least a symbolic gesture, but there's still more he could do by helping the US investigators. Okay, it's very, very sad. So it's just dark, right? And interestingly enough, before she passed away, she was one of the people who believed that Epstein was still alive. Okay, it says, does anyone ever feel like Epstein is sitting pretty on an island somewhere in hiding? That's Virginia Giuffre herself. Her saying it herself, saying two different spellings for Jeffrey Epstein, two people with different spelling on the flight logs. Jeffrey versus Jeffrey, the proper Epstein. So where's Jeffrey Epstein? That's what she's saying, all right? Saying it's misspelled on purpose. So the chief medical examiner doing the autopsy, one of the most prolific deaths in all of America. Guy's name is everywhere. Manages to misspell it. Notice the ME is the same, M1919423. Okay. Very, very interesting. So she would reply in the comments, someone would respond to her saying, more to the point, do you? She said, I have my fears he's still alive. He was smart. I mean, like genius level smart. And he had so much dirt on so many heavy hitters. I've never been able to shake the thought of him laughing his ass off at the fact that he got away with it again. And someone else says, do you? She says, sometimes I knew him for a long time. And when he said to me he'd never get caught and stay in jail, I believed him and I still kind of do. It's a scary thought, but one that I can't shake. Okay. So let's recap some of the very odd and not really sensical events that led up to her passing. Okay, so just weeks before her death, on the 31st of March 2025, she would spark alarm with a cryptic social media post saying that she only had days left to live. She basically accused Epstein of, and she said a troubling IG post from hospital claiming doctors told her she had 4 days to live, now down to 3 after an apparent car crash. In a Sunday IG post, she shared a photo of her bruised face from the hospital bed, asserting in the caption she went into renal failure after a school bus crashed into her at a whopping 110 kilometers an hour while she was slowing down for a turn. She claimed her injuries were so severe the doctors gave her just days to live and transferred her to a specialist urology hospital. But despite supposedly being at death's door, she still managed to muster up the strength to update her IG followers. She seemed to accept her alleged fate, writing she was ready to go, but wanted to see her kids one last time, which seemed to cast doubt on that happening, and ended the post by thanking her fans for being a part of her life. Now, a lot of people on Reddit didn't think this was real. They said she didn't look injured. She didn't look like you could take photos of yourself in the hospital when you get these kinds of injuries. And a lot of people speculated that somebody else had posted it. And interestingly, it said the details of her hospital visit are unclear. There don't appear to be any media reports from Perth, the city she lives with her 3 kids, or anywhere in Australia confirming her claim of a car accident involving a speeding school bus. Then, the following day, the Australian authorities just came out. The police downplayed the situation, reporting that there was maybe a little recent car accident that she was involved in, but it was only minor. But then why is she in hospital talking about she's got days to live?
Australia police explained they know of a minor crash between a school bus and a car that was reported by the bus driver the following day, but there were no reported injuries to them as a result of the crash. Here's what the officers have said.
I do know there was an accident on the 24th of March. It was a bus with another vehicle.
And was there any passengers on the bus at the time? Are you aware?
I'm not aware of passengers on the bus, but certainly the bus driver reported it as he was required to do and in the right time frames. And I'm advised there was about $2,000 damage in the vehicle. Not aware of any injuries.
Now, separately, a spokesperson for the East Metropolitan Health Service has told Australian media that Miss Giuffre is not at any of their facilities.
So it doesn't really make too much sense, right? And as they're saying in the comments, is it me or is something really just not adding up? She's not in hospital. It wasn't a serious crash. Something stinks to high heavens. Anyone here after news of her checking out? Suspicious? Needs investigation. No medical professional will tell you the exact number of days you have to live. The school bus driver reported the crash the following day. That detail alone is enough to make this BS stink. And more discrepancies would come out just days later. So then it came out, it said evidence is mounting that Jeffrey Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre might have lied about the seriousness of her car wreck in Australia last month, according to a report. Multiple parents of children on a school bus that collided with her car blasted the Epstein accuser, with one calling her a liar for saying that she only had 4 days to live. A bit weird, isn't it? That parents of the kids on the school bus would come out to talk down on this woman. Like, what? The parents told London's Telegraph newspaper their kids quickly dismissed the accident as nothing more than a small crash after exiting the bus to assess the damage. They also reportedly blasted Giuffre's characterization that she suffered life-threatening injuries. Who does this? Who does this and comes out and says stuff like this? One parent, Emmy Rose Wright, whose 3 kids were aboard the bus, told the Telegraph there's no damage to the bus and none of the kids are injured. Another parent, Hayley Miller, said she was disgusted by Giuffre's Instagram post showing her badly bruised face with a caption warning she had 4 days left on this earth. Miller said the whole story is sick. I don't know what's true and what's not, but I do know the injuries are not from the bus incident. What is going on here? What type of people come out and try and insult a survivor of SA for having a car crash? Miller added, it's lies. I don't know what she's trying to get from all of it, but I do feel bad for her and I hope she gets help. According to police, Giuffre got in the fender bender with the school bus in Nergaby, a farm town 12 miles north of Perth, just after 3 p.m. Cops described it as a minor collision with no reported injuries. Giuffre's rep issued a statement saying she transported herself to hospital after her condition worsened following the accident. The rep claimed the children on the bus were traumatized, which is the opposite of what everyone else says. All right? Why are people coming out to comment on this school bus crash? Makes no sense. And look at this, right? We got a whole Daily Mail article with an interview with the bus driver, right? The bus driver is basically giving his side of the story, contradicting everything that Virginia Giuffre said, all right? She's used to that at this point, people contradicting the things that she said. But it's just so bizarre that this would even be a thing. The bus driver claimed that the crash had been blown out of proportion and accused Miss Giuffre of exaggerating the severity of what happened. Mr. Munn said the crash happened after he'd followed a slow-moving white car for 3 kilometers before deciding to overtake when it went under 75 kilometers an hour, and it was safe for him to pass around 3 p.m. He said the small Toyota Highlander involved in the collision was driven by a 71-year-old woman, believed to be Miss Giuffre's carer. He said that he had no recollection of her being in the Toyota, but a police report into the incident stated that a woman aged 41 was a passenger. So he's got all of this talk for her, but then he says he has no recollection of her even being there. So now we're seeing bits of the car that were apparently left at the scene, All right. And this is a whole breakdown of the incident, a picture of the school bus. All right. It's like, it's just very intriguing, right? The sequence of events of the bus is traveling behind a car, slows down. The bus driver goes to overtake. The driver of the car then turns into a property without indicators on. The bus driver beeps the horn and the vehicle clips the back of the car. Both pull over and the bus driver gets out to check on the motorist. The car sustains minor damage and both vehicles drive off. This is the site of the crash. This is all where it happened. So it's been well documented. The bus driver said he had 29 children still on board as he began his maneuver, only for the car to suddenly start turning right in front of him to get into a rural property. Mr. Munns, a school bus driver for 16 years, said he beeped the horn. He was unable to avoid clipping the car, damaging its tail light in what he described as a minor collision. I don't like how he's trying to act like he's in the right. You're driving too fast. If people want to turn, maybe they forget to use their signals, but you should be ready to slow down for any car in front of you. Maybe a child runs out in front of the road and they have to hit the brakes. You need to be traveling at a reasonable speed. It's his fault. All right. He said he immediately stopped to check on the car driver, who had also pulled over and was satisfied that they weren't hurt. They said the 71-year-old driver swapped details, including phone numbers, and they drove off afterwards. He decided to report the incident to the police as he felt the circumstances were a bit sus. Oh, yeah? Crawled out the woodwork suddenly to report this. This ain't adding up. He insisted he was under no obligation to report the crash, as the law only required accidents to be reported if they caused more than $2,000 worth of damage. And he viewed that the incident didn't pass the threshold. He said he telephoned the driver as a courtesy to say he reported the accident, and she rang him back to say that there had been a passenger who had suffered a black eye. And then he said he was horrified to see Miss Giuffre's Instagram post saying she'd been injured when a school bus ploughed into her at such a high speed, and said that basically her description blew it all out of proportion. He didn't even see her in the car. Well, you didn't see her, so you can't really talk down on her claims. And he said the accident was caused by the carer. The driver basically pulled out in front of me. I made sure she was all right and went and did a police report. That's cap. You were behind them. You hit them from behind and you weren't paying attention. You were going too fast and you didn't slow down for the car in front of you that was slowing down. Doesn't matter. They didn't use their signals. All right. Said she was elderly. Asked if she was okay. She said, yes, I'm okay. Asked if she lived here. She said, I'm a carer. She needs to put her indicator. I told her she needs to put her indicator on when you turn. Yeah, well, you should slow down. This guy, this is so weird. That's all the conversation was. She asked how the kids were. I said, fine, it wasn't a major crash. Said the impact was so minor. There was no damage to his rhubar, the bar designed to protect his bus from damage caused by hitting kangaroos on the road. There's no damage on my rhubar. I still had 29 kids on the bus. I didn't even take a photo because it wasn't warranted. Would have been good to see a photo. He told why he reported the crash to police. I did because to me it sounded a little bit sus. You don't have to do a police report if the damage is under 2,000, but it sounded sus to me. We have a very good reputation, so it's all about safety. It just wasn't normal. We're driving. We stopped. You were driving too fast, buddy. All right. I don't buy this. There's a bunch of stuff about this story that don't make sense. I thought it was very strange, and I told her I'd already done a police report, and that's all I have to say. She told me there was another person in the car. Mr. Munn said a police officer who photographed his bus was laughing as he did so. I actually feel sorry for her. If I hit that car at 110, they would be dead. I used to drive ambulances for years, and I know how to have a good look. Got the all clear from police. If they want to come for my insurance, I'll fight that as well. She said she was hit by a bus at 110. He said he was fed up about the crash and having to deal with its aftermath. I would rather this just go away. Just a little bit strange. Now, interestingly enough, okay, following her passing, her family would actually release a handwritten journal entry, and a tweet that was uncovered would only raise more questions, all right? Virginia Giuffre, family reveals words from journal after she checked out. It says, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers need to show the battle lines are drawn and we stand together to fight for the future of the victims. The family found a raw handwritten note she penned before making her own, and they're sharing it with the world. So I just read you that. It says, is protesting the answer? I don't know, but we've got to start somewhere. You know, didn't leave behind a note. Allegedly did that to herself, didn't leave behind a note. And then this tweet's gone around as well. I've read you this tweet earlier, but she said, I would never take my life. All right. Her death came just weeks after she claimed she only had a few days to live following a car accident. Now, a lot of theories have been going around on Reddit as to what actually happened to her. I honestly don't think that it is. I don't think she checked out herself. Virginia Giuffre warned us. The bruises, the countdown, the isolation. Her husband was her handler. I've been looking into this for a long time. It always felt wrong. The media made it feel like it was sad and complicated, maybe just a tragic end. But when you go back and lay out the timeline, the pattern doesn't look emotional. It looks operational. In 2002, Virginia escaped Epstein. She'd been for years. She was when it started. She had no documentation, no protection, no home. She made it to Thailand, where she enrolled in a massage course. She was alone, vulnerable, and just trying to survive. That's when she met Robert Giuffre. He married her quickly and took her to Australia. I think there was 10 days between meeting and getting married. That's the last time she was independent. From then on, every door to her ran through him. There isn't much publicly about him. No professional history, no media, no presence, no interviews, no past anyone can confirm. He stayed out of frame while she became the face of one of the most explosive legal stories in modern history. She sued Epstein, she sued Ghislaine, she sued Prince Andrew, she gave interviews, she became a symbol of survival, and Robert was next to her, not in court, not in print, not even in reaction. She received $500,000 from Epstein in 2009. The legal expectation was silence, and she broke that. In 2015, she sued Ghislaine Maxwell for defamation, and in 2019, she named Prince Andrew directly and said she was not planning to end her own thing. That wasn't theatrical, it was specific. This is a ChatGPT theory, I'm not going to lie. Epstein had just died under impossible circumstances in custody. People who looked too close ended up gone. She was trying to document her risk. In 2021, she filed a civil suit against Andrew, and that was settled in 2022, and it didn't include a gag order. That means she was finally free to speak without legal restriction, and it was reported she received millions from the settlement. After that, she became quiet. No more big media appearances, no tell-all, no book deal, no release of names. She was still married, still under the same structure that followed her since Thailand. In January, how long is this? In January 2025, she accused Robert of violence, and the injuries were serious. Cracked sternum, damage to her eye. She filed a report. He responded by filing a restraining order against her, which the court accepted. She was blocked from seeing her children until June, and she was preparing for the custody hearing, but she didn't make it to June. Her father said he hadn't visited because he believed she was still living with Robert. He said he tried in the past 4 times, but something always went wrong. He didn't give specifics, just that it never worked with Robert in that picture. That makes sense. Isolation doesn't always happen loudly. In March 31st, she posted a photo, visibly bruised, and had claimed she had kidney failure and that she had 4 days left to live. The kind of language that usually comes from doctors or threats, not breakdowns. She said she'd been hit by a school bus going 110. A few days later, the driver came forward and said the collision was minor and she wasn't even in the car. After that, she was treated like a mental health episode, but the bruises were never explained. For 25 days, no updates, no correction, no follow-up. On April 26th, she was found dead. The cause was labeled self-ending. No autopsy results were released publicly. There were no clear details, just the end. Robert didn't issue a statement. There's been no response, no funeral post, no mention of her name, and they were still married. Unless she had a legal will that excluded him, he inherits everything. The Epstein money, the Prince Andrew settlement, her estate. He was the last person to have full legal and physical access to her. The structure of this makes sense if you look at it as a control operation. If you believe Epstein was tied to Mossad and that ring was part of a blackmail operation, people like Virginia weren't just survivors, they were liabilities. She had direct access to names, timelines, places. She had already cost the Crown a massive settlement and public embarrassment, and around that same time, Victoria Hervey appeared on Piers Morgan. She said Prince Andrew had been used as a scapegoat. She then mentioned Mossad, caught herself and said, "You know who I mean." She then said she wanted to stay alive. That moment wasn't casual. After that, she changed her story. She started defending Andrew, and then she questioned the photo of Virginia. She casted doubt. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she knew what happens when you stay on the wrong side of something like this. Virginia tried to speak. Maybe that final post was the only version of the truth she was still allowed to say, but it didn't make sense on purpose. It made her look unstable and distracted people from the injuries, and it worked. The story was buried before the body was, and Robert still hasn't said anything. They're saying, honestly, the whole Virginia Giuffre situation is just classic too many coincidences territory. She spends years fighting some of the most powerful and protected people on the planet, literally posts, "I'm not planning to end," warns about being silenced, then suddenly she's isolated, bruised, blocked from her kid, and dead under a cloud of confusion. Her own lawyer says there's big question marks about the official story. Her father flat out doesn't buy that she did it to herself. There's no public autopsy and no real answers, just a rush to close the book and move on. The pattern's always the same. The people with the most dirt on the system end up gone, and the narrative gets wrapped up fast. When you look at the timing, right after settlements, restraining orders, and public injuries, the silence from her husband, the way the story's being buried, it's hard not to see this as more than just a tragic ending. If you think this is at all just random bad luck, you are not paying attention to how power actually protects itself. I don't personally think that she did it to herself. I can't believe it. It's too crazy. What do you guys think? Let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know whether you think that this is just absolute abject conspiracy or whether you think there's something to this. Too many people have taken that way out in this scenario. It is absolutely ridiculous. Can't believe a shred of it at this point. I've seen too much. Okay. That's it from me today. I've done 5 videos today. I kind of switched up the topics today. I thought maybe we're getting a bit burnt out on the Epstein stuff, but maybe not. Maybe you want to see more of this. So let me know what you thought of this video. I'll be back tomorrow. I have at least one Epstein topic for you, maybe a couple more, depending on what new files and things have been coming up. Or if there's other major big news, like what's going on in Iran or other things, I will keep you guys updated on that as well. Thank you so much for supporting. Rest in peace to Virginia Giuffre, man. I don't believe she did it to herself, but that's just my opinion. All right, let me know what you guys think.